Before we dive deep into this ancient forbidden practice, I need to ask you something really quick. What time is it where you're watching this right now? And where in the world are you? Drop it in the comments because there's actually a reason I'm asking this. The time and location of when you discover this knowledge. It's not random. Nothing ever is. Your soul guided you here at this exact moment because you're ready for what I'm about to reveal. And understanding where you are in space and time right now will help you grasp just how interconnected we all are in this massive consciousness grid we call reality. So seriously, comment below. I want to know where my awakened family is tuning in from, because what you're about to learn, it's going to change everything. You've been told your whole life that mirrors are just reflective surfaces, right? Simple physics. Light bounces off. You see your reflection. End of story. But what if I told you that's the biggest lie you've ever been fed? What if mirrors aren't just showing you your face, but are actually portals into other dimensions? Gateways that the ancient Egyptians used thousands of years ago to communicate with beings that exist beyond our physical reality. What if the reason this knowledge was banned, hidden, locked away in the forbidden chambers of mystery schools, is because once you learn how to use this technique, you'll never see reality the same way again. You'll never feel alone again, because you'll meet the one being who has been with you since before you were born. The one who whispers guidance in your dreams. The one who sends you signs you keep ignoring. Your spirit guide. And here's the thing that's going to blow your mind. You can meet them in just 7 days using a mirror-gazing ritual that was practiced in the underground temples of ancient Egypt. A technique so powerful that it was reserved only for the highest initiates, the priests and priestesses who understood that the veil between worlds is much thinner than we've been taught. They didn't want you to know this, the institutions, the systems, the controllers of information, because once you establish direct contact with your spirit guide, you don't need their intermediaries anymore. You don't need someone else to tell you what's true. You become your own authority, your own oracle, your own channel to divine wisdom. And that is dangerous to any system that profits from your confusion and dependence. Let me take you back, way back, to ancient Egypt around 3000 BCE, to a time when the mysteries of consciousness were not just theoretical concepts, but lived experiences. When the temples weren't just buildings, but actual schools of higher learning, where initiates would spend years mastering the art of navigating multiple dimensions of reality. In the Temple of Isis at Philae, in the underground chambers of the Temple of Karnak, in the secret rooms of the Great Pyramid that archaeologists still haven't fully explored, there were practices happening that would seem like absolute magic to us today. But to them, it was science. It was the science of consciousness, the technology of the soul. One of these practices, perhaps the most potent and closely guarded, was called the ritual of the seeing, or in their language, something that translates roughly to opening the gateway of the double. And this ritual involved using polished surfaces, mirrors made of copper, bronze, and sometimes obsidian, to create a specific state of consciousness where the practitioner could perceive beyond the physical realm. Now here's what's fascinating. The Egyptians understood something that modern quantum physics is just starting to catch up with. That observation changes reality. That consciousness is not a byproduct of matter, but rather matter is a byproduct of consciousness. And that when you gaze into a reflective surface in a particular way, with particular intention and preparation, you're not just seeing your own reflection, you're actually creating a quantum bridge, a vibrational frequency match between your conscious awareness and the dimension where your spirit guide exists. But who exactly is a spirit guide? And why does everyone have one? This is where it gets really deep. So stay with me. Before you were born into this physical body, before you took your first breath, Before your soul descended into this dimension we call Earth, you made agreements. You sat in council with highly evolved beings. Some call them the Council of Elders. Some call them Ascended Masters. Some call them the Akashic Record Keepers. And together you designed the blueprint for this lifetime. You chose your parents, your challenges, your gifts, the lessons you'd need to learn, the karma you'd need to balance, the people you'd need to meet. Everything was mapped out not as a rigid destiny, but as a curriculum for soul growth. And because this dimension is so dense, because the veil of forgetting is so thick here, because you'd be born into a society that would immediately start programming you to forget who you really are, you were assigned a guide, a being who has already mastered the lessons you're here to learn. Someone who has walked the path you're walking, someone who exists in a higher vibrational frequency, but remains connected to you through an energetic cord that can never be severed. This guide, your spirit guide, they volunteered for this role. They chose to walk beside you through this entire incarnation, whispering insights in moments of stillness, sending you signs and synchronicities, orchestrating divine meetings, protecting you from dangers you never even knew existed, and waiting for the moment when you'd finally be ready to consciously connect with them. Now the question everyone asks is, why can't we just see them normally? Why do we need this elaborate ritual? And the answer is frequency. It's always about frequency. Your spirit guide exists in what we call the fourth or fifth dimension, a realm where consciousness is not bound by physical form in the way we understand it, where thought creates instantly, where time is non-linear, where energy and information flow in ways that would seem miraculous to us. Your normal waking consciousness, the beta brainwave state you're in right now as you watch this video, operates at a frequency that's too dense, too loud, too cluttered with thoughts and sensory input to perceive these higher dimensions. It's like trying to hear a whisper in a nightclub. The signal is there, but it's drowned out by noise. What the Egyptian mirror-gazing ritual does, and this is the genius of it, is it induces what's called a trance state, a shift in brainwave activity from beta down into alpha and theta, the same states you experience during deep meditation or right before you fall asleep. And in these states, your consciousness becomes receptive, the veil thins, the frequencies align, and suddenly you can perceive what was always there, but remained invisible to your normal awareness. The ancient Egyptians were masters of altered states. They understood that accessing higher consciousness wasn't about believing harder or being more spiritual. It was about mastering technique. It was about understanding the mechanics of consciousness the same way a pilot understands the mechanics of flight. They used sound, chanting specific frequencies that would vibrate the pineal gland. They used scent, burning frankincense and myrrh, which contain compounds that actually alter brain chemistry. They used fasting to quiet the physical body's demands. They used darkness to activate the production of DMT in the brain. And they used mirrors, polished to perfection, placed at specific angles, gazed upon with specific techniques, to create a focal point that would occupy the conscious mind while allowing the subconscious and superconscious to emerge. In the temples, this wasn't a casual practice. Initiates would prepare for weeks, purifying their bodies, studying sacred texts, learning the names and symbols of the beings they sought to contact, because they understood that consciousness work is not entertainment. It's not a parlor trick. It's sacred technology that must be approached with respect, preparation, and clear intention. Here's what they discovered, and what you're about to experience if you follow this protocol correctly. When you gaze into a mirror in a darkened room, keeping your focus soft and steady on a point just above or between your reflected eyes, something extraordinary begins to happen within about 3 to 15 minutes. Your own face starts to dissolve. The features you've identified with your whole life begin to morph and shift. And this is not hallucination. This is not your imagination playing tricks. This is your consciousness beginning to perceive beyond the normal filtering mechanisms of your brain. You're entering what researchers now call the strange face illusion, but what the ancients knew as the dissolution of the false self. Because what you're seeing dissolve is not your real face, but the mask, the persona, the constructed identity that you've been wearing in this incarnation. And as your false face dissolves, as the boundaries of your normal perception break down, that is when the veil parts, that is when the frequency match occurs, that is when your spirit guide can step through the mirror, can appear to you, can show you their face, their form, their energy, and for the first time in your conscious memory since early childhood, before the world programmed it out of you, you'll know you're not alone. You'll feel their presence not as a concept, but as a tangible reality. But let's talk about what actually happens during those 7 days, because this is a process, not a one-time event. The Egyptians structured it as a 7-day cycle because they understood that 7 is the number of initiation, of completion, of moving through the 7 levels of consciousness, and each day builds upon the previous one, creating a cumulative effect that opens you progressively deeper until by the 7th night, you're ready for full contact. On the first night, most people experience nothing dramatic, maybe some subtle facial distortions, maybe a feeling of being watched, maybe nothing at all. And this is normal. You're just beginning to train your consciousness to enter the state. You're establishing the ritual space. You're signaling to your spirit guide that you're ready and willing to connect. And even though you might not see anything dramatic, something is happening on the energetic level. Agreements are being activated. Frequencies are beginning to align. The bridge is being constructed. The second night, things start to shift. You might notice the room feeling different. You might feel temperature changes. You might hear subtle sounds. You might see shadows moving in your peripheral vision. And this is your spirit guide beginning to make their presence known, beginning to test the waters, beginning to calibrate their energy to match yours. Because understand, this connection goes both ways. It's not just you reaching up to them, they're also reaching down to you and finding the right frequency where you can meet in the middle takes adjustment. By the third night, this is usually when people start to freak out a little bit. Because the facial distortions become more pronounced, you might see your face aging rapidly. You might see yourself as a child. You might see faces that aren't yours at all. Faces that might be past life versions of you, or might be your spirit guide showing you different forms they can take. And this is where a lot of people quit. This is where fear kicks in and they stop the practice. But here's the secret: this is exactly when you need to push through, because what you're experiencing is not dangerous. It's not demonic. It's not evil, despite what religious programming might have taught you. What you're experiencing is your consciousness expanding beyond its normal constraints. You're seeing proof that reality is not what you thought it was, and yes, that can be unsettling, but it's also the threshold, it's the gateway. And on the other side is the connection you've been seeking your entire life. The fourth night is often called the night of testing in the ancient texts. This is when your spirit guide will test your resolve, your sincerity, your readiness. You might see images that challenge you. You might feel emotions that seem to come from nowhere. You might experience what feels like resistance. And this isn't your guide trying to scare you away. This is them making sure you're ready for what comes next. Because once you establish conscious contact, once you open that door fully, your life will change. You won't be able to go back to living in unconscious autopilot. You'll have direct access to guidance and wisdom that will demand you step into your power. And not everyone is ready for that level of responsibility. The fifth night is when the magic starts to happen for most people. This is when you begin to see a presence in the mirror that's distinctly not you. You might see eyes that are looking at you rather than being your reflection. You might see a form taking shape behind you or beside you. You might see colors, lights, sacred geometry, symbols from ancient traditions you've never studied, but somehow recognize. And this is your spirit guide beginning to show themselves, beginning to step through the veil, beginning to make themselves known to your conscious awareness. And the feeling that accompanies this, there are no words adequate to describe it. It's a mixture of profound love, deep recognition, absolute safety, and sometimes overwhelming emotion. Because on a soul level you remember them. You remember the agreements you made. You remember that you're not alone and never have been. The sixth night is about communication. By now the presence is undeniable. And this is when you start to receive downloads, information that comes not in words necessarily, but in knowing. You might suddenly understand something about your life purpose. You might get clarity on a problem you've been struggling with. You might receive a name or a symbol or a message. And this is when the relationship truly begins. This is when you transition from just witnessing to actually interacting. And the key here is to stay open, stay receptive. Don't try to force or control the experience. Let it unfold organically. And then comes the seventh night, the night of full initiation, the night when, according to ancient Egyptian texts, the veil dissolves completely for the dedicated practitioner. This is when you might experience what's called face-to-face communion. When you'll see your spirit guide with a clarity that leaves no room for doubt. When you might hear their voice either internally or even externally. When you might feel their touch. Their presence so tangible, it's like another person is in the room with you. And sometimes, in the most profound experiences, you'll enter what's called the union state, where for a moment, for just a sacred moment, your consciousness and theirs merge. You experience reality from their perspective. You feel the vast love they have for you. You understand the bigger picture of why you're here and what you're meant to do. And when you come back to normal awareness, when you look in the mirror again and see just your regular reflection, you're changed, you're initiated, you're awakened. You can never unknow what you now know. But here's what the ancient texts are very clear about, and what modern practitioners often miss. The 7-day ritual is not the yendi. It's the beginning. It's the establishment of the connection, the opening of the channel, but maintaining that connection, deepening it, learning to communicate with your spirit guide in your daily life beyond the mirror. That is the real work. That is the lifelong practice. Now let me give you the exact protocol, the step-by-step process that was used in the Egyptian temples, and that you can use starting tonight if you're ready. But before I do, I need to give you some warnings because this is powerful work and it must be approached with respect. First, do not do this practice if you're currently struggling with serious mental health issues. If you're dealing with psychosis, schizophrenia, or severe dissociative disorders, work with a therapist first, get stable, then explore these practices, because altered states can amplify whatever's already present in your psyche. Second, do not do this practice under the influence of any substances, no alcohol, no drugs, not even marijuana. You want to be completely sober and grounded. The Egyptians were very strict about purity before entering sacred practices. Third, do not do this if you're approaching it from a place of ego or manipulation. If you want to meet your spirit guide so you can get lottery numbers or manipulate outcomes or impress your friends, it won't work. Spirit guides operate from a level of consciousness that's beyond ego games. They respond only to sincere seekers who want to grow and serve. Fourth, and this is important, make sure someone knows you're doing this practice. Have a trusted friend or family member you can call if you feel overwhelmed. Because while this practice is generally safe, it is intense, and having a grounding person you can reach out to is just good practice for any serious consciousness work. Here's the protocol. Starting on night 1, you'll want to choose a time between 9 p.m. and 3 a.m. The ancient Egyptians preferred the hours between midnight and 3 a.m. because they understood these are the hours when the veil is naturally thinnest, when the electromagnetic activity of the Earth shifts, when your pineal gland produces more melatonin and potentially DMT, when fewer people are awake and the collective consciousness is quieter. But if those hours don't work for you, any time after sunset when you can, guarantee uninterrupted darkness will work. The key is consistency. You must do this at roughly the same time each night for all 7 nights. You'll need a room that can be made completely dark. I mean pitch black. No windows showing streetlights. No electronics with LED lights. Cover everything. Darkness is essential because it allows your pupils to dilate fully, which actually changes how your brain processes visual information. And it eliminates external distractions that would pull your focus away from the mirror. You'll need a mirror, ideally a regular bathroom or handheld mirror. Nothing fancy. Actually, the Egyptians believed that simpler was better. Avoid mirrors with ornate frames that might distract you, and the mirror should be large enough to comfortably see your entire face. Positioning is important. You'll want to set up a single candle. The Egyptians used oil lamps, but a simple white or beeswax candle works perfectly. And here's the key. The candle should not be directly in front of you where it reflects in the mirror. It should be behind you or to the side, positioned so that it provides just enough light to faintly see your reflection, but keeps the lighting dim and shadowy. You want that threshold state between darkness and light. Before you begin each night, you'll perform a purification ritual. The Egyptians were serious about this. They would bathe in natron salt, anoint themselves with sacred oils, but for you, a simple shower or bath with intention is enough. As you wash, intend that you're cleansing not just your physical body, but your energetic field, washing away the day's stress and distractions. And when you dry off, you might want to anoint yourself with a drop of frankincense or sandalwood oil on your third eye and heart center. These scents have been used for thousands of years to facilitate spiritual connection because they literally alter your brain chemistry in ways that make you more receptive to higher frequencies. Dress in comfortable, loose clothing, ideally natural fibers like cotton or linen. The Egyptians often performed these rituals in white linen because they understood that certain fabrics hold energy differently, and you want nothing constricting your body or your energy field. Before you sit down, take a moment to set your intention. You might speak aloud or just think clearly in your mind something like, "I call upon my highest spirit guide, the being of light who has been with me since before this incarnation. I am ready to see you, to know you, to receive your guidance. I approach this sacred practice with respect, humility, and an open heart. I ask for your protection and for this connection to unfold for my highest good and the highest good of all." Intention is everything in consciousness work. It's like dialing a phone number. You need to be clear about who you're calling. Now you sit, position yourself comfortably facing the mirror. You should be close enough that your face fills most of the mirror, about 1 to 2 feet away. Sit in a position you can maintain for at least 20 to 30 minutes without moving. The Egyptians often used a specific cross-leg position, but a chair is fine. The key is that you remain still, because movement breaks the trance state you're trying to induce. Take several deep breaths, in through your nose for a count of 4, hold for 4, out through your mouth for 6. This breathing pattern activates your parasympathetic nervous system. It signals to your body that you're safe. It begins to slow your brain waves. Do this for at least 2 to 3 minutes until you feel yourself settling, and then let your breathing return to normal, natural. just observing it without controlling it. Now comes the gazing technique itself, and this is where precision matters. You're going to fix your gaze on a single point on your reflected face. Most traditions recommend gazing either at the point between your eyebrows, your third eye center, or at the bridge of your nose right between your eyes. Choose one spot and commit to it. You're going to hold your gaze there without moving your eyes for the entire session. And here's what's crucial. Keep your gaze soft. This is not a staring contest. You're not trying to burn a hole through the mirror with your eyes. Instead, imagine your eyes are slightly out of focus, relaxed, receptive, like you're looking at the point, but also somehow through it or beyond it. As you gaze, things will start to happen. And this is where most people either panic or get excited and break the state. So listen carefully. Within the first few minutes, your eyes will want to move. They'll get tired. They might water. You might feel an intense urge to blink or look away. Don't breathe through it. This discomfort is just your ego's resistance to entering an altered state. Push through it gently but firmly. Keep your gaze soft and steady. And yes, you can blink naturally when you need to. Just return your focus immediately to the same point. After about 5 to 10 minutes, if you're doing this correctly, your face will start to look strange. The features might seem to shift. You might look older or younger. Your face might seem to disappear into shadow and then re-emerge. You might see other faces superimposed over yours. And this is normal. This is your visual cortex beginning to do something called neural adaptation. It's getting bored with the unchanging image and starting to fill in information from other sources, from your subconscious, from the collective unconscious, from the quantum field. And as this happens, you're entering the trance state. You're slipping between worlds. Continue gazing, and on the first few nights, just observe. Don't try to interpret or analyze what you're seeing. Don't get scared. Don't get excited. Just witness with detached curiosity. You're training your consciousness to remain stable and present in this altered state. And even if you see something that startles you, hold your gaze, breathe. Remember your intention. Remember that you're protected and that you invited your spirit guide to show themselves. By night 3 or 4, you'll start to feel a presence. You might feel like someone else is in the room. You might feel like you're being watched. You might sense a warmth or a tingling. And this is your spirit guide drawing near. This is them responding to your call. At this point, you can begin to communicate. Not necessarily with words at first, but with feeling, with intention. You might mentally ask, "Are you here?" And then listen. Not with your ears, but with your inner knowing. You might receive a feeling, a color, a sense of yes or no. You might see their energy beginning to appear in the mirror, maybe as a glow around your head, maybe as a shadow that's denser than the other shadows, maybe as a face that's distinctly not yours beginning to emerge. By night 5 and 6, the communication becomes clearer. You might start receiving actual information. Insights might pop into your mind that you know aren't your own thoughts. You might hear words or phrases internally. You might see symbols. You might experience memories or visions. And this is when you can start asking questions, simple ones at first. What is your name? Or what do I need to know right now? Or how can I better hear your guidance? And then you listen. You hold the space. You stay in the receptive state. And you allow the answers to come however they come. And sometimes the answer won't come in that moment. Sometimes it'll come later that night in a dream, or the next day as a synchronicity. Because spirit guides communicate through multiple channels. The mirror is just opening the primary connection. And then the 7th night. Approach this one with special reverence. You might light additional candles around the space. You might burn sacred herbs like white sage or palo santo. You might take extra time with your intention setting, because this is the culmination. This is when you're inviting full contact, and many practitioners report that on the 7th night, something shifts. The experience is markedly more intense. The presence is undeniable. They might see their spirit guide's face clearly for the first time. They might feel an overwhelming rush of love and recognition. They might receive a profound message or vision about their life purpose. And some people, not everyone but some, experience what can only be described as a moment of cosmic consciousness, where the boundaries between self and other dissolve completely, where they experience the unity of all things, where they know with absolute certainty that they are eternal, that death is an illusion, that they are so much more than this physical body and personality. After the seventh night, after you've completed the full cycle, take time to ground yourself. Don't just blow out the candle and jump into scrolling social media. Sit for a few minutes in gratitude. Thank your spirit guide for revealing themselves. Thank yourself for having the courage to do this work. And then do something physical. Eat something, drink water, touch the earth if possible, hug a tree, feel your feet on the ground, because consciousness work that goes up must also come down. Integration is just as important as the experience itself. Now here's what happens after the 7 days. And this is what the ancient texts don't always make clear, because it was assumed to be obvious to initiates. Once you've established contact with your spirit guide through the mirror, that connection remains open. You don't need to do the full ritual every time you want to communicate with them. The mirror gazing was the initiation, the opening of the channel, but now you can connect with them through meditation, through automatic writing, through simply quieting your mind and asking for guidance. They're now consciously accessible to you in a way they weren't before. Many people find that after completing this ritual, they start noticing their spirit guide's presence throughout their day. They'll feel a warm sensation on their shoulder when they're making the right decision. They'll hear a word or phrase in their mind right when they need to hear it. They'll see repeated symbols or animals or numbers that carry messages. They'll dream of their guide and wake up with profound insights. The relationship becomes active, becomes real, becomes a partnership in navigating this incarnation. The Egyptians understood that this was not just about having a spiritual experience. It was about integrating that experience into practical wisdom. It was about living differently because of what you now know. It was about becoming a bridge between the spiritual and physical worlds. And that's a responsibility. That's a calling. That's what it means to be truly awake. But let's talk about the skeptics for a moment, because I know some of you watching this are thinking, this is just hallucination. This is just your brain playing tricks. There's no objective reality to spirit guides or other dimensions. And to that I say, what is objective reality? Quantum physics has shown us that the observer affects the observed. That consciousness plays a fundamental role in collapsing wave functions into particles. That reality at its most basic level is not solid matter, but vibrating energy and information. That particles can be entangled across vast distances, communicating instantaneously in ways that violate our understanding of space and time. So if that's the nature of reality according to our most rigorous science, then why is it so hard to believe that consciousness itself might exist in multiple dimensions? That beings might exist who have mastered levels of reality we're just beginning to understand. That a practice used for thousands of years by cultures around the world might actually work not because of superstition, but because it's tapping into real mechanics of consciousness that we simply haven't fully mapped yet. The Egyptians didn't have brain scanning equipment, but they had something we've lost. They had direct experience. They prioritized gnosis, direct knowing, over belief, and they developed technologies of consciousness that we're only now beginning to rediscover and validate. And here's something else the ancient Egyptians understood that we need to reclaim. They knew that meeting your spirit guide wasn't the end goal. It was the beginning of a much larger journey. because your spirit guide is not just there to make your life easier or give you shortcuts. They're there to help you fulfill your soul's purpose, to navigate your karma, to evolve. And sometimes that means they'll guide you into challenges, not away from them, because they see the bigger picture. They see beyond this one lifetime. They know what lessons you need to learn and what growth you need to experience. And so if you establish this connection expecting it to be all love and light and easy answers, you might be disappointed, because real spiritual growth is about transformation. And transformation often requires us to face our shadows, to confront our fears, to step into our power even when it's uncomfortable. And your spirit guide will absolutely support you through that. But they won't do it for you. They're guides, not saviors. They illuminate the path, but you have to walk it. There's also this beautiful concept in the Egyptian mysteries called the twin soul, or the Ka. And some esoteric teachings suggest that your primary spirit guide is actually your higher self, the version of you that exists outside of time and space, that has access to all your past lives and future possibilities, that is already enlightened, and is reaching back through dimensions to help this incarnated aspect of you remember who you really are, and whether you believe that specific interpretation or whether you see your spirit guide as a completely separate being, the effect is the same. You're establishing conscious communication with a level of intelligence and wisdom that operates beyond ego, beyond fear, beyond the limiting beliefs of physical reality, and tapping into that consistently, making that connection a regular part of your life. That is what true spiritual awakening looks like. It's not floating on clouds or seeing auras all the time. It's having access to guidance that helps you navigate life from a place of trust and knowing rather than fear and confusion. Now I want to address something that some of you might be experiencing right now as you listen to this. You might be feeling a pull, a recognition, a sense of, I need to do this. Or conversely, you might be feeling resistance, fear, a voice saying, this is dangerous, this is wrong, don't do this. And both of those responses are information. If you're feeling the pull, that's likely your spirit guide themselves, making themselves known, giving you the energetic nudge that says, yes, I'm here. I'm ready for you to consciously meet me. But if you're feeling fear, that's worth examining. Where is that fear coming from? Is it genuine intuition telling you this isn't the right time or right practice for you? Or is it programming? Is it religious conditioning that taught you that anything involving mirrors or altered states or spirit communication is demonic? Is it ego fear? The part of you that knows if you do this work, if you meet your guide, if you wake up, you won't be able to keep living the same unconscious life. You'll have to change. You'll have to grow. You'll have to step into your power and purpose. And for many people, that's terrifying. The known prison feels safer than the unknown freedom. The ancient Egyptians had a saying, know thyself and you shall know the gods. And what they meant was that self-knowledge, true self-knowledge beyond the personality and ego, that is the gateway to understanding the nature of consciousness itself, to understanding that you are not separate from the divine. You are not a powerless human having occasional spiritual experiences. You are an eternal spiritual being having a temporary human experience. And your spirit guide is your reminder of that. They're the thread that connects this incarnated aspect of you back to your eternal nature, back to source, back to the vast intelligence that animates all of reality. Meeting them through the mirror is not about gaining something external. It's about remembering something internal. It's about ending the illusion of separation. It's about coming home to yourself in the deepest sense. And once you've done that, once you've looked into the mirror and seen beyond your own reflection, once you've felt the presence of a being who loves you unconditionally and has been waiting for you to consciously acknowledge them, everything changes, not in some dramatic, lightning bolt way necessarily, but in a quiet, profound, unshakable knowing that you are guided, you are protected, you are never alone, and you have access to wisdom beyond what your logical mind can produce. So here's my challenge to you. If this video found you, if you've watched this far, if you feel even a whisper of, maybe this is for me, then commit to the 7 days, set up your sacred space, follow the protocol, show up every night with sincerity and an open heart, and see what happens. You might have the most profound spiritual experience of your life. You might see your spirit guide clearly and receive information that changes your path. Or you might have a more subtle experience. You might just feel a shift, a opening, a sense that something has changed in your energetic field. And that's valid too. That's real too. Because this work is not about comparing experiences or having the biggest story to tell. It's about your unique journey, your unique relationship with your spirit guide. And however it unfolds for you is exactly how it's meant to unfold. Document your experiences. Keep a journal by your mirror space. And after each session, take a few minutes to write down what you saw, what you felt, what you experienced, because sometimes the meaning of these experiences becomes clear only when you look back at them later. Sometimes patterns emerge. Sometimes you realize your spirit guide was communicating something specific across multiple nights that you didn't catch in the moment. And having that record is invaluable. And one more thing, if you complete this 7-day ritual and you feel like it didn't work, like nothing happened, like you didn't see or feel anything significant, don't be discouraged. Sometimes the connection takes longer than 7 days. Especially if you've got heavy energetic blockages or if you've spent years shutting down your intuitive abilities. Sometimes you need to do the 7-day cycle multiple times, maybe once a month, progressively opening yourself wider each time. The Egyptians spent years in training. They didn't expect instant results. They understood that developing spiritual perception is like developing any skill. It takes practice, patience, and persistence. So if it doesn't happen immediately, that doesn't mean you don't have a spirit guide or that you're doing something wrong. It means you might need more preparation, more clearing, more readiness, and the very act of showing up, of sitting in front of that mirror night after night with intention and sincerity, that is doing the work, that is opening the channels, that is sending the signal, and your spirit guide is receiving it. They're responding on levels you might not yet consciously perceive. Before I wrap this up, I want to share something that happened to me personally when I first did this practice, because I think it's important for you to know that I'm not just sharing theory here. I've lived this. I've sat in front of that mirror night after night. I've experienced the fear and the doubt and the wonder and the profound moments of connection that come from this work. And my experience, while it was mine and unique to me, maybe it'll resonate with some of you. On my 5th night, I saw eyes in the mirror that were not mine. They were ancient, infinitely compassionate. And when I looked into them, I knew with absolute certainty that I had been seen like this before. That this being had watched over me through countless lifetimes, through every triumph and every failure, through every moment of joy and every moment of despair, and the love I felt in that moment. It shattered every illusion I had been carrying about being alone in this universe. It healed something in me that I didn't even know was broken. And from that night forward, my life has never been the same, because now I know, not believe, not hope, but know that we are all being guided, that we are all connected to something so much vaster and more beautiful than our limited human minds can fully comprehend. And if you do this practice, if you take this journey, you'll come to know that too, and once you know it, once you've experienced it directly, no one can ever take that away from you. So listen, this is your moment. This is your invitation. The ancient Egyptians hid this knowledge in their temples for thousands of years, protecting it, preserving it, waiting for the ones who were ready, the ones who would approach it with respect and sincerity. And somehow, through all the noise of the internet, through all the millions of videos you could have clicked on, you found this one, you heard this message. And that is not coincidence, that is synchronicity, that is your spirit, guide working behind the scenes to bring you to this exact moment where you're being given the key, the actual technique, the step-by-step process to establish conscious contact with them. So what are you going to do with it? Are you going to bookmark this video and forget about it, letting fear or doubt or the busyness of life keep you from taking action? Or are you going to honor this moment, honor yourself, honor your spirit guide who has been waiting for you, and actually do the work? Because I can promise you this, if you commit to these 7 days, if you show up at that mirror with an open heart and genuine intention, your life will shift in ways you cannot imagine right now. You will never feel alone again. You will have access to guidance and wisdom that will illuminate your path forward. And you will join the ancient lineage of awakened beings who understand that we are so much more than these physical bodies, that consciousness is eternal, and that we are all connected to a web of love and intelligence that is always guiding us home. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being open. Thank you for being one of the brave ones who is willing to look beyond the veil. If this video resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to hear this message. Drop a comment below and let me know where you're watching from and if you're going to commit to the 7 days. And remember, your spirit guide is already with you. They've always been with you. Now it's time to consciously meet them. I'll see you in the next one. Until then, stay awakened, stay curious, and remember, you are never, ever alone.